So what are some of the systems you would recommend for schools facing these unexpected events? And how are those systems designed for onset of the situation through to conclusion, if it ever does? And Darcy, do you want to take a stab at that first?
Sure. One thing I did want to tag on to Geri's response was that as an administrator, all of us, we recognize that even though one family, one student may be in crisis right then, we have 500 other families that we need to be cognizant of. And the lens of equitable practice really comes into play. Making sure that one student's crisis is treated as equitably as possible, although customized, right, to meet their needs as the others, so that to use our casserole analogy, we try to be as light as we possibly can with a very difficult topic. But that one group doesn't get two casseroles and the others 22,
Hmm.
especially year to year, and timing and all of those things. So from onset to conclusion, the steps are actually the same. It would just be the duration with each step that would probably vary. We talk about a dynamic problem solving team. Understanding that Geri and I can be rural Kansas girls, and yet you live outside of Manhattan, right? And so this book addresses the differing resources that are available to schools, be it urban or rural. So we understand that you may not have the personnel to create a dynamic problem solving team, but you can use your BLT. So those are the types of accommodations that we discuss in the book. So getting our folks trained about trauma, about how we handle things, talking about a liaison that we utilize that can speak for the family so that we are from the very beginning, putting the student at the center, then the family, then the community. We call it our 360-degree view. And that we immediately form a partnership so that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. And more importantly, the right hand is not doing something that the left hand doesn't want done. And that's huge, especially when families are in crisis and trauma. Then we lean into what educators know, right? Which is the instructional cycle. And we talk about how we layer that on to the 4 different focus groups or the 4 different focus areas that Geri spoke of earlier. And that was probably our aha moment, was when we came up with the 4 square template, because I'm going to let Geri talk about the needs of Nicholas shifting, but this allows busy educators to communicate in a ubiquitous manner with all staff that have hands-on with the kiddos throughout the day, so that no balls get dropped. Geri, I'm going to let you take it home from there.
I will. So, I remember very clearly when we were working on this and we had the aha of the 4 square template. Because so we focus on in the book, and we take our lead, the inspiration, of course, was from the struggles that my son went through. And we look at behavioral, social, emotional, physical, and academic. And Nicholas was receiving chemotherapy, a very aggressive form of chemotherapy, 5 days a week, as well as radiation for an extended period of time. And so when he was able to go to school, there were times when, academics just wasn't the priority, right? And I think it was hard for me as an educator and a mom to think, but he's got to learn his multiplication facts, when really what we needed to be able to do was focus in on, and I'll just use, physical, because, he would sit in class and either not feel well or feel really good if he had gotten, an infusion the day before. And in our template, we have a system set up that, and Darcy had mentioned it, that one individual kind of being the go-to person. And in it can be anyone, but in our case, it would have been Darcy. And there were times when Nicholas he would go to school, but he had had a rough night. And I needed to relay that to Darcy so that she could get the message to those educators who were working with him. By this time he was in 5th grade. And, I know what Darcy did. She would hang up the phone with me, run down to tell, the 5th grade teachers, but in between, she stopped 4 different times and either doesn't get down there or gets down there too late, or, and so the 4 square template that we developed is so much needed, because then that point person can put a color coding on it as to what we're going to focus in on today, which interventions are going to be brought up today because of whatever the individual student has dealt with the night before.